And when he was just chewing them all out, he was this, I find this guy here, and who is he? He's reading our defense maps or something like that. And you all sitting there on your ass and doing nothing. So I'm ignored again. And as he rants and raves with those people, of course, the minute he leaves, I got 3 guards over me and with rifles and pistols, and all the reading material is taken away. And so I wait, and then these guys on motorcycles come in and they picked me up and took me to a regular prison camp where
Okay, let's
a
stop.
regular prison camp.
Let's just stop it. Let's take a break. Right.
Well, I
Wait, okay, so
I remember it fairly well because after the war, when I used to teach escape and evasion because I'd been an escapee.
Yeah.
And so I told the story rather many times.
Oh, it's a good story.
Most of it is pretty good.
So you're back in there, and there you got the guards over you now.
Yes, so I'm at this what I thought was a Corps command post, and the colonel has chewed out his cohorts for not adequately guarding me, and they put me in a sidecar again of a motorcycle with 2 guys with machine guns. And I got sent to this prison camp. And there I got interrogated. The fellow that interrogates me is a captain, but for some reason or other I asked him what his rank was, and he said Brigadier General. But I knew German singing, I knew he was a captain, but so it by now I think it's probably night again, or maybe not. But he starts the interrogation business and name, rank, and I go tell him I only did my name, rank, and serial number. So at this time his guard comes in, and pistols are flashed in my face, and we're going to shoot you, and something, name, rank, and serial number. And this captain, the German interrogator, blows his stack, and about how his American bombers have killed his wife and his children and so on, and he hates the damn Americans. And I am there dressed in a German uniform, therefore I'm a spy. I guess I remember this German uniform. And these guys are there with their revolvers and pistols, I mean. And so we will shoot you if you don't give us this name, rank, serial number, and your regiment and commanding officer. And so I'm resisting here. And then it says, very well. And they put me away for the night, but call you back, and then they call me in a couple of times during the night. And I'm always making sure that I'm awake when they come in there and standing up, which is probably a mistake. Well, anyway, eventually he says, well, you will not cooperate, you will be shot as a spy. So he calls in 2 of his guys, and they take me out again. It's night now, moonlit night. And we march to these woods. And about halfway to the woods, why this heavy guy comes running up with this little book in his hand, and he says, this is the chaplain. Have you got any last words or words to that effect? And I say, no. And so we march on down, and in the meantime, it's a squad of riflemen, and then a guy with a pick and a guy with a shovel. It's kind of and then the chaplain with his book. So we get into the woods, and it's bright moon at night by now, and ask questions again. And I said, no, this name, rank, and serial number. About this time, let's see what happens. Well, he gets his people and lines them up, and then he tells me, kneel. And I said, no, I'd rather, words to something like, I'll take it standing up, or words to that effect. I had this idea that that's how you were supposed to do things. Let's see, okay, And then when he sort of grabs me by the hair and he yanks me down, it catches me by surprise, and the next thing you know, I am on my knees and almost sprawling on the ground. And so then he gives orders to these guys to aim, ready, aim, and just, and, you know, I've been trained with this, that what can happen, and it's been a scenario that, you know, and we had training films on it, and other guys talking about it. But no, you're nevertheless worried a bit about it. So, but finally, nobody shoots. Nobody shoots, and I'm very much relieved. And the guy says, "Get up." No, that's I'm getting ahead. No, the guy says, "Okay, get up. You're a brave man," and that's when I blew it. I knew I wasn't going to be shot, and so he told me he was a brigadier general, and I think he was a captain. So I said, "Well, Captain, there's one thing I'd like to know. I'd like to know what your name is." And he said, "What for?" And I said, well, and I'd heard this in a training film of some sort, that some British guy had done this. And he said, "Well, one of these days, this war is going to be over, and I want you on the top of my shit list." Dumb thing to do. And the next thing you know, I'm flying through the air. He hauls off and socks me right on the jaw, mouth, knocks out a tooth, and I'm rolling on the ground. I said, "Oh God, I've blown it now." And so I'm pretending I'm out. And he comes up and kicks me and says, "I didn't hit you that hard, get up." So I'm struggling up. In the meantime, this bunch of German GIs are there, and I could understand the German. "Was ist das shitless?" What is the meaning of shitless? And one of the others, "Oh, it means that the Scheißenliste," and explains what it is. So the soldiers start chuckling and grinning and almost laughing, and they're amused. And of course that makes the officer even angrier, and he forgets about me and starts chewing them out. They're all of a sudden out of attention, and he's chewing them out. And I'm sort of amazed now. And so everybody's relaxed after that, and they marched me back to the barracks and put me in where I had this jailer who was a yard bird, a guy that he used to talk, "Oh, Hitler. This army is for the birds." When is war?
Let's stop. I got to change my tape. Let's stop right here.
So I got put back in this sort of a barracks. That was my prison there, where we had this German, my personal jailer, you might call him, and he was probably a total failure in the German army, and he would complain about the army, and he would complain about Hitler. Heil, you go around having Heil Hitler this, Heil Hitler that. It's a pain in the neck, this Heil Hitler. Can't wait till this thing is all over. And very talkative fellow. And about this time, they give me a nice pair of British boots. I think they were British boots or German boots with nice hard soles, and a pair of American trousers and a British battle jacket. So I have uniform from 3 different armies. And very comfortable and very warm, and I really felt much better. And no hat, but that was the way it goes. And this time, I'm going to be sent out, and I'm leaving the prison and to be transferred. And as I'm leaving, my interrogator, the guy that punched me in the teeth a day or 2 before, comes walking out, and the captain, and I'm walking out, so I quite properly salute him, and he salutes back, and good morning and whatever, and everybody stops, and he introduces me to his wife and children, and it was rather interesting because I wouldn't expect that, but it actually introduces me like I'm an old member, friend, and all that. And then says good luck or something like that. And I marched off with these two guys. And one of them was a sergeant. By then I was not hiding my German from anybody much. And this old sergeant, I talked to him very little bit because he wasn't talkative. And he had been in the army for many years. He'd been through Africa and Italy and Greece and all those places. And old, hard, and kind of tired infantry sergeant. And the other guy, whatever he was, he never said a word. And we're sort of walking. We went across the Rhine and marched for a long time, and finally stopped in some town I don't know. And we go into some lady's house who greets them all and looks at me up and down, and they take me in, and we're all sitting at this table. And of course I haven't eaten very much. And they bring out, this lady is there, and we're all sitting down there, and they bring out some wine, and they bring out some cheese, Limburger cheese, very smelly, and sausage. And it's like a feast. I haven't had anything like that in God, I don't know how long. And so we're sitting there, and the sergeant, Veldwebel, pours some wine for me, cuts some sausage and some cheese, and he divides it all sort of equally. And God, it was a marvelous dinner. It was absolutely marvelous. And then the woman looks down at me, our hostess, and she's looking at me from behind the sergeant, and well, in German says, God, he sure looks young to me, because I looked like about 14 years old at the time, I guess. And he says, yeah, and he said something else which I don't remember. And then we got together and marched down the road, and we're hitchhiking a lot, picking up trucks. A lot of the trucks were burning wood instead of, they were short of gasoline. Well, anyway, we get finally to a town called Mannheim in Germany. And we're at the railroad station, and I'm marching with these two guys, and the train full of people are up there. And again, they ask this guy, what have we got there? What's that? And the sergeant says, American officer. At least he says he's an American officer, or words to that effect. And the train explodes, and the people all over the place are yelling at me and shaking their fists. Chicago gangsters, what comes out a lot. And finally this chant becomes Chicago gangster, and shaking their fists. And they sort of take me away from there. And that doesn't bother them. It's these two soldiers are old timers. They don't get rattled easy, and they just keep on walking. And Chicago gangster gets fainter and fainter. And night is falling. And the reason for the Chicago gangster is they'd been bombed many nights in a row and didn't particularly like it. And we go into an air raid shelter. And in this air raid shelter, I'm there with these two sergeants and this soldier, a private, and the sergeant. And they turn me over to another group of soldiers in the center. And there are a couple of, maybe half a dozen, or another bunch of Americans. And some of them are cavalry guys like me. And I'm warm for the first time in ages. I'm in this nice warm air raid shelter, and all these Germans around. A raid actually started then. And the soldiers are all there, listening to the boom, boom upstairs. And one of these guys, one of the Americans, a lieutenant, sort of a wise guy, and he's talking to the kids about New York and Brooklyn, because that's where he was from, and telling marvelous stories. And everybody there, the soldiers there watching, listening to this guy talk about New York and the USA and how great it is, and if he only had some candy bars, he'd give them to everybody. And And then he starts showing, you know how we do the drill in the American Army? And this is unbelievable, but they're talking about drill in the American Army, the German Army, and he said, let me borrow your rifle. He's to one of the German soldiers, and the Germans, okay. So he has this German soldier's rifle, and he's doing the old manual of arms, right shoulder, left shoulder, and present arms. And the German soldiers are looking at it professionally, and oh, yeah, that's how they do it, huh? And the kids are just wondering. But then some old German guy gets there, and he must have had some rank somewhere, because he starts staring to this guy, and the rifle is snatched back, and, and everybody's told to shut up, and it sort of ruins the day for everybody. Well, anyway, so we get taken out next day, and go through the rubble, and start marching down the road, and I don't know if we picked up a truck somewhere along the line, and there's a group of us now, and we put in this to rest in the middle of the day, nice sunny day, and we're sitting there, this group, and then we had a Canadian there, and pretty sure a few Americans, including a couple that I knew, and we stopped for a rest, and we're sitting there all relaxed, and with their guards off, talking to themselves, and this conversation starts, and one of the guys starts describing food. And he starts making menus and talking about the things that we should be eating, and everybody's there with their tongue hanging out. It was amazing, amazing. Well, eventually we get moving, we get put in a regular prison camp, but a temporary prison camp. And I'm in there, and then I get to interrogation again. So they send me to some castle a little ways down the road, and everybody says goodbye, and I'm thinking individually. One guy, one soldier marching me down there, I think a motorcycle. Well, anyway, I'm going to the cellar of this castle, and there they have this guy in this beautiful black and white German uniform, boots, breeches, and all that stuff, and splatches and medals. I mean, it looked great. And I think that was the SA, what kind of special troops of some sort. And so he starts the questioning again. I give him the same routine. Name, rank, and serial number is all I'm allowed to give you. You can understand that. And so he snarls at the German guard. The German guard gets my arm twisted behind my back and starting twisting it. And I'm indignant, or he's pretending to be. I've already been questioned 2 or 3 times. I've already been questioned. I've been interrogated all over Germany. And he says, where? So I said, I forgot the name of this, whatever the name of the place was where I'd been, Lindbergh or, well, anyway, he gets on the phone, yak in German, and he all but apologizes and hangs up the phone and sends me out. They put me in solitary confinement for about, maybe a week or less. And I'm in the castle up there, way up in the turret of this castle where the princess would drop her hair from. And I have a window way up there and a solid wall going down maybe 50 feet or more. And lousy food, and that's just a bowl of soup, and they push that in the door. And there are markings on the wall, including calendars with days scratched off. And not much to do, except I could look out the window. I could stand on my tippy toes and just barely look out the high window. And what's going on there are airplanes bombing the town. And boy, that makes me feel good, of course. And I'm just watching this show with a big smile on my face. And the Germans not liking it all that much. And I was there for days, and I was trying to keep myself entertained and trying to remember the days, remember calculus or whatever. And eventually I get sent back, and I'm with the group, and I get a great what would you call, reception. Everybody claps, hey, you got back. And so it was really nice to get back. So we're back there in this camp, and then what happened? Oh, one interesting thing. The one morning in this camp, they had a bunch of us officers together, British, Canadians, American, not too many, maybe 20 at most. And then there's some enlisted people over there, and then some American GI or sergeant, I don't know what he was, but he had heated up some of the water, this tub of this kitchen, and I went there to get some water or something or other, or shave, or I don't know what. But anyway, he wouldn't let me have any water because he said he had heated it up and nobody was going to get him. And so I didn't think that was right. And so I told him, well, I'm a lieutenant here, and I say you can't do this. And so this guy starts telling me to go to hell, and he does, which I found very embarrassing. But there were some tough officers in this place, so I went over there and said, look, this guy's selling this water for cigarettes, and that doesn't seem right. And so this Canadian and a couple other guys, big guys, they come over with me and read the riot act to this guy, and the guy said, okay. And so one of the Canadians gives him a cigarette and sort of patches things up, and it's okay. And this is a temporary prison camp, and in it there were about 200 Italians, and they were in the prison camp because, well, they didn't know whether they were enemy or not, and we considered them non-enemy, but uncertain. They had about 200 Indians, guys with Sikhs, with those Indian British Army people, maybe another couple of hundred English, and maybe 500 or fewer Americans, and about 3,000 Russians. Oh. A lot of Russians. And things are pretty dispirited there, and nothing there about escaping, and nothing like this one, what do you call it, Stalag 17. No radios, no nothing. And everybody's hungry, of course, describing marvelous dinners that they might be eating somewhere. The women are completely forgotten. Dinners that would count. Well, anyway, one guy was a little rattled, and he spent all his time, all day and all night, in this little foxhole he had dug, and he had a steel helmet and a big overcoat, and just spent all his time and wouldn't talk to anybody. Probably psycho in some way. And nothing was organized in this camp. They were all more or less temporary people. But there was one group that was organized, because I was called in to some office somewhere, and when I went in there, there were maybe about 4 or 5 British, and I think they were British, all of them, and one American maybe, and there were majors, I think they were majors and captains, and they were medical corps. And they said that they had somehow convinced the Germans in charge of the camp that they should surrender, but they were medical people, and for some reason or other they thought I was the ranking, even though I was just a lieutenant, first lieutenant, I was the ranking American officer, or British or American officer in the place, except for these doctors or whatever they were. So they wanted me to assume command of this prison camp that they could take over if we were willing to do it. And so I said, well, sure. And so suddenly I was in command of a regiment, you might say. And it actually worked very well. That I was let in on it, that they'd been talking to the German commander, and if we would protect them from the Russians. They would be willing to surrender to us, but we had to protect them from these 3,000 Russians that would go berserk. And so we said, yeah. And so we put it into effect. Had I been shot yet?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm getting ahead of the game. Before this, going to this, at this camp, before that happened, I had been, we were going to ship us to another camp, the Boku camp, where there was everything. And I was put in a railroad car and a train with several cars in it. And we were being shipped elsewhere. And the cars were loaded. I was with officers, so they only had 20 guys in my car. Other cars had enlisted people, and they put 40 in an enlisted car, much more crowded. And we were taken out and put on this train, and we were there, and we had managed to open up and cut wires and twist wires in a window so we could get out if we had to. And we were planning to escape that night. And but then they took the train out of the tunnel that we were in, and we're out in the open. And he said, uh-oh, because, you know, a train, big target for American airplanes or British. And we're rather, when we knew that, so we were out there in the open, and we can't get out because it's broad daylight and guards around. And we have to wait to get back to the tunnel, or night, then we can sneak out. And I had a compass by then, and a knife, and all that kind of stuff. Well, anyway, sure enough, airplane shows up. American or British, I don't remember. And they start shooting a train that's across from us. And it happens to be an ammunition train, and that starts blowing up all over the place. Oh. And they're waiting in this car, and we were watching this little windows taking turns, and I remember thinking, God, I hope they run out of ammunition soon, or they'll be after us. And sure enough, they blew up the train, and the next thing you know, we hear this and rat-tat-tat-tat, and this machine gun going off, and they hit one of the enlisted cars. Evidently, then the next one comes in, 50 caliber, I think, and they hit the car I'm in, and I got hit in the head, and maybe 6 or so people. Everybody in the car got wounded or killed. And one of them was this young Canadian guy, one of them nice British fellow. Well, anyway, so the train has stopped, and I sort of shake loose, and I'm not badly hurt, but there's blood all over the place, and a lot of people dead, you can tell, and people hurt. So I'm discussing with the guy, should we give away our escape hatch there? It's kind of stupid thinking. And I said, well, God, that's ridiculous. We've got to stop those airplanes. So they push me up there, and we go out this is our escape hatch. In the meantime, the German guards see us going out, and they're coming over saying, no, no, no. In the meantime, we pay no attention to them. It's another guy and me. And we open up the doors, and just, I can speak enough German, so we're not trying to escape. We just want to get people out where we won't get hurt. We stop the airplanes. And eventually the guards let us open up the train. We got people out, and other cars, the same thing happened with the other car. And then we start taking the wounded out of the car and the people that had been killed. And one of them was this nice British officer, good friend of mine. He had very, very badly. And he was dying, and he knew there wasn't much he could do. Let's see. Oh, so I found a nice Scottish sergeant, and he came over and talked to this lieutenant, and eventually he died. And then the German soldier wearing a brown outfit, some home guard or something, started taking the belt and watch off a German soldier that had been shot, and he was lying down there right next to the British guy. And I just blew up. And I was chewing him out in German, the best German I could manage, to say, "You dirty dog," and robbing the dead. Have you got no respect? Aren't you ashamed of yourself? You're a disgrace to the German army. And then about this time, this spiffy German officer, tall, good-looking, shiny boots and belt and Mausers, and comes striding up to me and looks at the thing and says, "My job." And he marches off this guy, leaves me there, and never saw him again. But it was a mess, and the enlisted car that got hit, it was a slaughter there. Can you imagine, with all those people crowded in there? So they loaded us up, and they walked to the nearby hospital, and I walked with them because I was wounded in the head.
Let's stop for a second here. You were just at the terrible incident.
Oh yeah,
with
they shot up the train.
Now, why didn't the plane come and scrape you? Did they realize it was prisoners of war? Is that
No, what happened? We opened up the door, and the prisoners that were there, we got them out. In the meantime, somebody, I don't know who, organized a bunch of prisoners and made a big sign, POW, prisoners of war, made by taking off their shirts and lying on the ground. And here's another funny one. The German soldier, GI again, and the POW, he's in German, POW. And what the heck does that mean? And the German says, Personen ohne Waffen, which means in German, people without weapons. But anyway, it was understood, and the airplane waggled his wings and took off, and that was that. We saw those. And then we were taken to a hospital, nunnery of some sort, but a hospital. And I was able to walk and all that, so I was taken away under guard and back to the camp that we'd come from. Some of the people I didn't see until much later. Like one of the fellows, the guy that was doing the practice drill and got the German guy all upset. He was one of the guys that was hit rather badly with bullets in the back, so his arm was paralyzed. And I saw him later in New York. Well, anyway, to get back to the prison camp where...
Oh, wait, oh, sorry. Okay, I guess I'm... Okay, all right, go ahead. Go ahead, I'm all right.
We eventually got back to the prison camp, and of course I had a bad headache and all that. And the officers, medical officers, had somehow been arranging this takeover of the camp, getting the German officers to surrender to us, and we'd protect them from the Russians. And so I was brought in on that and went along with it. And these officers, I never heard from them. I never got any credit for it, I'm sure. And I look at them, there's like a Greek chorus, the aged wise men. And they were running everything from behind the lines and being real quiet and like judges and telling me to do that and do that, and so you're in charge. And I was. And of course, we finally did it. We took over, and we had a few days planning as to how to do this and who does what. And we used the British officers and men, the American officers and men, and the Indians. And the Italians, we decided, no, we'll just keep them sort of on the sidelines. And then we found lots of weapons and pistols. We took those over and put our own people up on the guard towers with German helmets on, and put some of the Germans that we knew they'd be killed if they found out they were working for us, and we put them on the front gate to stop traffic and don't let people in. Well, anyway, somebody else was handling that detail. So we had the camp in our hands, and we were digging ditches here and there, and thinking of defending the place. We couldn't have. In the meantime, every once in a while on the road, which you could see, you'd see Germans retreating, tanks and cars and troops of infantry. And in the meantime, it was a question of the meeting. We had a meeting about the Russians, so we had another meeting, and we brought the Russians in on it. The highest ranking Russian was a captain. So for political purposes, I immediately promoted myself to major and made myself out of a tin can a little major insignia, and because we were afraid to put the Russians in charge. I mean, the Cold War starting already. And they were a bunch of nicer guys. Nobody spoke English. And but finally, that's where I've made my first decision there. I said, we will arm the Russian officers with as much as we can. So we did, and they were very pleased with that. And I don't know where we found all these pistols, but we found a whole cache of pistols and machine guns. And so we had lots of weapons. But a regular German army would have made toast out of us. And that went on for quite a few days, and we were waiting for the Americans to come, and nobody comes. And we hear artillery, but less and less. And so finally, we had a car that was in the thing, a German car, and some major had been brought into the camp, and we let him in because there was a major there, and he had a guard with him, so we brought the guard and put the guard in jail. And this major was quite surprised because and he just took it, but he didn't take over, so I was still in charge. But I said, we don't know where the Americans are. Do you know where the hell they are? No, I said, I've been a prisoner. So somehow or other, the major decided that he would take this jeep out and find the Americans. It's a nice thing for him to do. I hadn't thought of that. So he did, and he got a driver and had German uniforms on top, American uniforms on the bottom, different hats, depending on where they were going. And but anyway, so nothing happened. And I think it was the next morning, next day, a long time afterwards, this major shows up with his car and lots of small boxes of food, and it ran into, I think, 14th Cavalry or something like that, and they're too busy to rescue us. So we said, well, are they going to send food? I said, yeah, I've told them about our situation, that we're low on food. Actually, we're not bad on food. And we had, with the German cooks, we kept the German cooks in the kitchen, and we had cooks of our own that were prisoners, and they went in there and supervised the kitchen. And suddenly we were getting not bad food that they were making, but we didn't have too much. And then a truck came in with lots of food, sea rations and powdered eggs and stuff like that. And that went into our kitchens, and some people gorged too much and got very sick. So and then we had the problem of passing this on to the Russians, and I don't know who handled that, but we made a quartermaster of somebody, and they handled that. And by then I was feeling worse and worse all the time. And an airplane landed, a C-47, which is like a DC-3, and it landed in the field next door, and it was full of food, and people, and some medical people, and they took one look at me, and I went into the plane, taken out to the hospital. That's the last time I saw the camp. That's an interesting story, I have to admit. Well, anyway, so I get off on this plane, and I get taken to this army hospital up in Liège, Belgium, and of course I got this British battle jacket, a little overseas cap that I've made for myself, and I took off the major's symbol and put on my lieutenant's symbol instead, also out of a sea can. And I go in the middle of the night with these big German boots, and in the meantime I have something like 2 pistols and a couple of knives and on a pistol belt, and I walk clomp, clomp, clomp with these noisy German shoes. In the meantime, I'm walking into a ward that's full of wounded American and British soldiers. And the minute they hear these boots on the wall, get that damn Kraut out of here. We don't want any damn Krauts in our... I'm not a Kraut, I'm not a Kraut, I'm an American. And so they assigned me to a bed there, and I'm feeling a little better now. And in the meantime, and I have this arsenal that I'm carrying, everything except grenades. I got rid of those before I left. And I sort of threw them under the mattress, I think. Oh, no, I didn't. I just sort of hung them up on the edge of the bed there, and they sort of checked me in, and next morning the nurse comes in and is aghast, because this is a hospital. We're not supposed to have weapons in a hospital. And I'm not about to part with them. So we finally reached an agreement, and I throw the guns and knives and bayonets under the mattress, and she says she'll forget all about it. And she was a rather nice girl, and I think then one day we went out, and I was feeling a lot better, and the V-1 bombs were coming over. You remember the V-1? They were the flipper rocket, the original V-1 rocket, and they were landing all over the place. And we were sitting there watching all this, and it was very romantic. Nothing came of it, but it was still very romantic. And she was homesick. She was really homesick. And I still remember. I don't remember the name or anything. And then I went back to the hospital, and I was feeling pretty good. And I went to see about getting released, and they wouldn't release me. But I was feeling pretty good, so I just left and started hitchhiking. And I hitchhiked. Finally, I wound up in a replacement training center, and in the replacement training center, they were trying to give me a job. No, they did give me a job. And then I was walking by a bunch of enlisted guys lying there, sitting there on the side, and I looked down and I saw one of my old platoon sergeants, and from early in the 3rd Cavalry, before I went to the C Company, and we were good friends. And of course, by then I had this mustache here, and just kind of hadn't cleaned up much. And the hi, Sergeant, and he stands up, and he just looked at me. He says, "Hi, Lieutenant." And I said, "Didn't they teach you to stand up when an officer appears?" And he looks at me again and says, "I'll be damned, back." And so he stood up and he gave me a big handshake, and I was saying, well, I said, I don't think I want to stay here. I think because I've been given a job, and they were going to keep me here until the end of the war, and I'm ready to go back to the 3rd Cav. And do you want to go with me? I don't know, or maybe I said, come with me. I don't remember. Well, anyway, we both skipped this thing, so we were AWOL. And we're driving, hitchhiking down the road, and what comes up but a staff car going towards the front, and in it, in the back seat, is this brigadier general. And so he stops and opens the window, and I was, "Where are you going?" He said, "We're trying to get back to our outfit." And I was telling him I was a POW, and I escaped, and this sergeant was wounded, and he's ready to go back. And he says, "Get in." And he drove us to the regiment. So we arrived at the regiment in style in a general's car. And when I got there, it was, my God, it was really something. Because they all thought I was dead. They'd seen the body and all that. And well, anyway, so they got another quick debriefing, and they found out that my pigeons had all arrived. So I said, well, might as well get back to my job, to my old platoon. And they said, sure. And so, and this major took me to this place where the platoon was, executive officer. And when I got there, he got a radio call and was called off. So he said, well, they're going to be passing by right through here, and maybe in 10 minutes. And so I'm there with this funny British jacket, homemade hat, and army trousers, and a mustache. In a month or whatever it had been, I'd grown this mustache. So I'm standing there, and pretty soon I see this damn platoon, my platoon, driving by. And I'm waving, and the guys wave back, and nobody's stopping, and they're just waving. And I take off my hat, and they waving, and finally the last car in it, the car commander of that one was this guy that cooked the cow when we landed at Normandy. Yeah. And he recognized me and got on the radio, and the whole thing went boop, stopped, made a big circle. Boy, whole home week. And so everybody got out of the car, and gee, we thought you were dead. So it felt pretty good. Uh-huh. So I got in my old car, and the guy that was in it went into another car, and on we went and carried the war on through into Germany. But it's a rather interesting story. Yeah. And the paper has more details. A lot of it I've skipped, and a lot of them I may have gotten wrong. I don't know, but not too much. But anyway, I think it's a very interesting story.
Great story.